Most emerging leaders have not been trained in how to conduct effective performance reviews. So they're often just thrown in and trying to figure it out by themselves. But there are some common mistakes and traps that leaders might fall into when conducting these conversations. And so in this video, I want to share with you 8 common mistakes and how to avoid them. Before we get into that though, I want to share with you that I've just released a new pack of leadership cheat sheets, especially designed for performance review and feedback. And in these cheat sheets, I put together a very great summary of the most important topics when it comes to performance review processes, how to provide feedback and difficult conversations, how to motivate and engage your employees and manage underperformance. So if you like my content, if you like this video, make sure you check out these cheat sheets under koopmann.com/cheat sheets. Now let's get into the 8 mistakes to avoid in performance reviews. Mistake number 1 is a lack of preparation. You need to spend enough time preparing the conversations, preparing the performance, reviewing facts and data and KPIs, and really understanding what you want to get out of it and what feedback you might want to provide. If you do not prepare, then you will be vague in your feedback. You might be too generic, and the conversation might not really go in a good, effective way. It can lead to conflict and a lot of emotional situations. So the key is in the preparation. Mistake number 2 is not sharing specific feedback examples. Often when providing feedback, we might tend to be very generic in what we share. We might say, you always do this, you're always late, you always miss your deadlines, you never get the quality right, you always make mistakes. And this generic feedback can lead to very defensive employees because they might feel threatened and might feel very vulnerable. So they might not stay open for your feedback. You want to be as specific as possible and share clear examples of the situation you've observed and the impact this have had. And then also what good and better would look like. The more specific you can be, the easier it is for your employee to understand and reflect and really take that feedback on board. Mistake number 3 is falling for the recency bias. So we all have unconscious bias, and as leaders, this unconscious bias can get in the way quite often when we think about our employees and in the way that we treat them. The recency bias is a bias that lets you focus more on recent events, and these events or these things that happen, these situations might overshadow what has happened in the past. So let's say you're doing a mid-year performance review, and just last week something happened where an employee missed the mark, didn't perform, or was out of line. Because it's been so recent, this might be in your mind when you think of the employee and when you think about judging the employee. So you bring this thing up and then you forget that they had lots of amazing achievements over the course of the last 6 months or the last 12 months. This can also be especially tricky if we do 360 reviews, for example, because we might scramble to come up with things to say or feedback to give, and then we just think about the last few weeks, and then suddenly something that just happened might become a much bigger thing than it actually was, and we might forget to highlight all the other situations that went really well. Mistake number 4 is not to focus on your employees' strength and achievements. Whilst of course we want to provide feedback and we want to highlight improvement areas to make sure that the performance is to the required standard and a success, we also need to make sure that we put a lot of emphasis on the strength of the employee and the strength that we see. The biggest potential for your employee to be successful lies in their strength. It lies in their natural talents of how they behave, how they see the world, how they process data or interact with other people. You want to make sure that you highlight examples of where you can see the strength, and then also look at achievements they've had by using their strength. You want to use this to motivate and re-engage them. If you only focus your feedback and your mid-year or end-of-year reviews on the things that they didn't do so well, their motivation will drop and they will feel quite defeated. Of course, we do not want to ignore weaknesses, but we do want to focus on strength in the first place. Mistake number 5 is to avoid difficult conversations or providing feedback. I had a manager in the past that was not really well equipped in managing feedback or difficult conversations. So he would become really avoidant when it was important to actually talk about issues or provide feedback in a productive way. And so in feedback conversations, he would always just say, yeah, it's all great, that's good, it's all good. And you would never really get any constructive feedback. And I find that really irritating. For one, once, if I want to improve, I also want to hear about where am I hitting the mark, but also where do I miss the mark and what else can I do to do it differently or better. But also when it comes to employees that are really underperforming or that are toxic or that are not sticking to company procedures, avoiding difficult conversations and feedback regularly can actually escalate something into a big thing. Often you can avoid misunderstandings and problems with performance by providing feedback when things happen really early on, as soon as you can. So avoiding difficult conversations will always make the issue much bigger in the long run. Mistake number 6 is not to set clear expectations. So when it comes to performance reviews and mid-year reviews, the biggest issue often is that expectations were not set properly at the start. You want to make sure that you take enough time to talk about expectations around goals, but also around behaviors, team culture, and values, and what this can look like in a team environment. You want to make sure that you both agree on the expectations and understand what's required and what a success will look like. These expectations need to be measurable as well, so that there's no misunderstandings about performance. So often in performance reviews, conflicts arise or they become awkward because people come from two different perspectives and measure success differently. So then you land there and you don't actually understand what the other person is talking about, or you actually get angry and frustrated because an employee might think their performance is up here and you actually see their performance down there. So setting expectations from the start and realigning these expectations in the mid-year review is really key to make sure that you're both working towards the right priorities. Mistake number 7 is to leading one-way conversations. So in mid-year reviews and end-of-year reviews, but also in your regular one-on-one meetings, you don't want to be just the one talking. You don't want to just share your feedback, your view, your truth of events. You also want to invite their perspective, understand their view, understand what's been going on for them, understand how they see you, what else they might need from you, and also provide feedback to you and how you lead them. It's really important that it's a two-way conversation so that everyone feels like they can contribute and that they're a valued member of this team, of this constellation. This will foster trust and foster engagement. Mistake number 8 is an inconsistency in your process. You want to make sure that your performance review process is standardized across your team members and that you have the same standard and same frequency of meeting for everyone on your team. And ideally, this should be the standard across the whole organization. When a process is inconsistent and done differently with different people, this can lead to a feeling of unfairness, resentment, and frustration within your team or the organization. So these were 8 common mistakes that I see that people do in mid-year and end-of-year performance reviews. If you want to learn how to prepare for a mid-year review, then check out this video here.